All right, welcome to the panel on the state of DeFi and smart contract automation. Today I'm joined by a great panel of guests. I'll let each of you introduce yourselves individually. Just tell us who you are and maybe a little bit about your project, starting with Lucas.
Yeah, hello everybody. My name's Lucas. I'm one of the business development assistants at Gravity Finance. We just delve into the realm of automated DeFi and trying to provide simplified strategies for people to use, and we automate the back end of things and handle the complex stuff for you.
Hey everyone, I'm Matt, co-founder of Robo Labs. Essentially, we're building tooling and infrastructure for DeFi projects to use to manage their data pipelines. And also, we previously ran delta neutral vaults and heavily used automation.
Hi everyone, I'm Rafael. I work at the Origin protocol. We currently have two tokens that we call O tokens, that is OUSD and OETH, and they are rebasing stable coins that generate yield automatically for you.
Right. Hi everybody, my name is Vladimir Simkovsky. I'm a CTO of DMA Labs. We're a development arm behind Ichi protocol, and Ichi provides automated liquidity management for concentrated liquidity on Uniswap v3, Algebra, and all kind of forks, different chains. We have about 100 automated vaults right now, and this number seems to be doubling every few months. And automation is a huge part of our success.
Great, yeah, thanks all. So as you can tell, we've got a diverse group of projects here. So I want to speak a little bit about, or I want to have each of you speak a little bit about how you're using automation in particular. And I'd like to start with Rafael. So Rafael, from Origin, you've been using automation probably the longest of anyone on the panel, and specifically for rebasing for your project. So I'd love for you to tell us a little bit more about that. How have you, considered building things out? Yeah, what have you considered along the way as you've automated things?
Yeah, sure. So with our stable coins, what we have is that we generate automatically the yield for you, right? So the whole value proposition is that you hold the stable coin and it rebases automatically for you. So there's a lot of automation that happens there, right? So the way that we use Chainlink Keeper is that we want to ensure a very good user experience for everyone that is holding our token. So we ensure that every day there is a rebasing event, and then you will see the value of your token going up, right? So it was the way that we also build these contracts is that we try to make them as simple as possible. So we kind of have two functions, which is should it run or run? But then everything else, the whole complexity part goes through the standard smart contract process that we do with all of audits and things like that. So that's more or less how we use it.
Yeah, intentionally very simple, it sounds. Cool. Yeah, and we'll go into a little bit about the different mechanisms maybe later on for you specifically. Yeah. But I'd like to move on to Vlad. So Vlad, like you mentioned, automated liquidity management for V3. There's a lot that goes into that. I know that for sure. You've got, like you said, over 100 vaults that you're automating. Tell us a little bit about that, what that journey's been like, developing those contracts and the impact it's had.
It's good you mentioned it's a journey, because it was a journey for us. We started with just the concept of a vault, that has several positions in Uniswap pool, and some idea how we can manage those positions while kind of protecting depositors from IL and concentrating at the same time. And initially, we were just rebalancing liquidity manually. It was very cumbersome. The idea worked, but it wasn't optimal. Then we started to create some contracts around the flow and do a push button, operator will push a button, all the calculations done on chain, and everything rebalances. It was better, still not good enough. And finally, we get to the point when we were confident enough that we can actually automate the whole thing using Chainlink Keepers. And that's what we did, I think around December last year. And as soon as we've done it, profitability of the whole kind of management system went about 5x. So it was a huge leap like that. And if you look at automation itself, it may be kind of simple concept, like Chainlink Keeper just pokes our rebalancing strategy every block, and strategy just looks, oh, do I want to rebalance the vault? And if I want to rebalance the vault, is it safe to do it, right? And if answer is yes to both questions, then the actual transaction is being executed. Simple enough. The complexity comes into actually the safety part of the question, right? Is it safe enough to move liquidity at this particular time? And when it is safe? And that's where most of the effort went with automating our strategies. We've done it. Now we're expanding to multiple chains, multiple AMMs approaching us saying we want it. And obviously Chainlink Keeper is a huge part of that. So we have about 100 of them now.
It's pretty good. You mentioned these safety parameters. What are they, if you can share a little bit more about what you're checking on chain?
Well, moving liquidity in a pool is inherently unsafe, right? And with automation, even so, because it's all in the open, like people know that's what you are doing. Actually, perform upkeep function is public, after all, right? So the strategy needs to be smart enough not to move liquidity when there is any chance that there is something funky going on in the pool. Somebody is manipulating it. That's why we've built multiple layers of protection. So we're using delayed rebalances. So yes, we want to rebalance, we don't do it right away. We initiate it, we check again, maybe like 5 minutes later, see what happened within this time period. If nothing bad happened, maybe we'll rebalance. We check several TWAPs, TWAP oracles, fast TWAP, slow TWAP, comparing what's going on there. Gas, takes a role as well, right? And a few other things on top of that. But the whole, sequence of layers of protection had to be built in to actually be able to use it.
Sure. Yeah. Thanks. And a few of you have mentioned this this perform upkeep, check upkeep. Just for some context, the way Chainlink automation works is, in order to use it, you write a contract that has two functions: check upkeep and perform upkeep. The former is just a way to write conditions, and when those conditions are met, it'll execute your transaction, and the details of that transaction are in that perform upkeep function. So as you mentioned, all that logic lives on chain, so it's pretty interesting and introduces some interesting design decisions that need to be made. Thanks for that. Lucas, so let's talk about GravityFi a little bit. GravityFi is a really, really cool concept, this concept of silos. And they're, well, I don't want to speak too much for you, but it's this way to automate like really interesting DeFi strategies. So I'd love for you to tell us a little bit more about those, how they're built, what goes into deciding what goes into a strategy. I'll hand it off to you.
Yeah, well, Silos is a very interesting product that we've been working on for a while, made significantly easier with Chainlink automation, thankfully, because we started off this journey of wanting to build complex strategies that the end result would be any specific user can pick those up and start using them, hyper complex, and then bring them to a real basic one-button deployment. And for us to create those strategies is a very manual task. We have to go into, say, talk to Kyber Swap, look at sort of liquidity, and go there and try and go, we'll put and build the strategy together. We'll manually go and do everything ourselves. We'll check all of the addresses, all of the swaps and routes that have to be taken and do, and then manually compile those together into a massive just order list, essentially, that then executes it for the user. And that can be a very lengthy process for us to build, and that's probably one of our biggest challenges that we face at the moment is talking to projects, building those and putting them together, and creating all of those different strategies for people to access. In terms of Silos itself, we've been hugely supported by Chainlink and the automation there. When we started off, we were thinking about originally doing it by ourselves and creating those by ourselves, but the benefits of Chainlink's automation is that it's a decentralized network. What we might have made with various computers across the place would have been very centralized and in control of us, which didn't necessarily match the ethos of what we wanted to do. But at the time, there was no other way. And so being able to jump in and start using the automation side of that's been really beneficial.
Yeah. Do you have a favorite silo, if I can ask, and put you on the spot?
Well, we have tons of different silos. For example, we can run collateral to debt ratios, and pull little bits of extra yield that you might not be able to get as a general user. Things really complex like that. My mother quite enjoys going into the higher APRs, knowing that there's not as much risk. But myself, my favourite's definitely just the dollar cost average silo, to be honest. Just buy $10 of Chainlink a day and just slowly build that up,
Love it. Great, thanks. And then Matt, so you're a bit unique on this panel, right? Robo Labs had a product called RoboVault that used automation pretty heavily. Now you're, again, I don't want to speak for you, but you're helping some other projects out with automation. I'd love for you to tell us a little bit more about that, your approach to, I guess, implementing automation yourself and for others.
Yeah, so originally, I guess about 2 years ago, we started with this product, RoboVault, doing these automated delta-neutral strategies on chain. Our journey was pretty interesting. Like, we initially started building our own keepers. I would say it didn't go well. It essentially led to myself and my co-founder running like 24-hour shift because we just couldn't trust that, what if they break, potentially like our users might lose money. And that actually did happen in one case where the keepers failed. So then we did switch to Chainlink automation. We had that running in parallel with our own, and it was just night and day difference where the Chainlink automation was much more reliable, meant we could actually like get some sleep, know that things weren't going to break. And then more recently we've pivoted a bit to more tooling infrastructure, working with other protocols, and a number of those protocols doing similar stuff, and we're essentially like helping them implement automation, so kind of helping them understand what they need to do on the smart contract side, because if you just have like automation, it could go rogue and do something wrong. There could be like vulnerabilities if the automation is moving money around. You want to make sure that there's like protection against things like MEV, etc. So I guess that's the high level of it.
Yeah, I think that's a good transition. You've identified some challenges that these projects have had, and part of your business exists because it's not necessarily easy to build these automations and take all the different complexities into consideration. So, kind of question for the group: what are some of the unique challenges in building out these automations? What issues have you run into? How have you overcome them?
I'd say. If I could take it,
go ahead.
So we went through the stage of like trying to build this ourselves, like trying to actually build our own automation product. It seems like quite simple. It seems like, okay, you just have something that reads the chain and triggers a transaction when some conditions are met. But there's so much complexity like alongside that. So gas is a huge thing. Like gas is like very volatile, and gas works very differently chain to chain. So that's one thing that can break. And then just the security side of things, making sure that you have this automation that works and it's not going to go rogue. So like one example, not really like smart contract, but I know like a friend who's built like a trading bot, and you see this with people doing MEV. Like sometimes they'll get like an error and that automation will go rogue and just like burn a bunch of money and like trigger. So making sure you also have the logic within the smart contract to protect against that is like really important. I'd say those are two biggest complexities in my eyes.
Yeah, so I guess I can add. Well, before I add, I actually want to say special thank you to Matt over here. And I told him just a few minutes ago, but they were inspiration for us to build our automation. Like maybe a year and a half ago, our CEO came to us and said, look, guys, they've done it. You should do it. And kind of that's how we started on that path. But it's kind of a warning for anybody who wants to do this. It's not a normal software development, right? You can take your estimation how much time it's going to take, and maybe multiply it by 4, and maybe you'll get close to it, because amount of testing and oversight and just breaking your head trying to think of what could go wrong is just enormous with this kind of development. It's doable, we've done it, but just be prepared. It's not a light thing to take and just do it. Just triple, quadruple your estimations to do it properly, to test it properly, to go through the audits, and any help you can get it, and only then go to production.
I think one of the most important parts of all of the challenges that we face is that we are in DeFi and we are dealing with people's money. All it takes is one little part going wrong in that automation there, and the money's gone. And security for people's money to be able to have the freedom and use automation, they need to be able to do that securely and with trust in the process of doing that. And so I think a lot of the challenges that we face, you cannot predict what they are until you actually come into them and run into those scenarios that you hit, because you just can't predict some of those things. Making sure you've got all the right checking parameters and all of those things, you can still be caught out, and you can just never predict some of those that have come along.
Sure.
Yeah, and for Origin, we have been really thinking about this part of automation, right? And I feel like I'm going to go in where you wanted to touch in, which is we take automation as really part of all the contracts that we're building. And the way that we think about that is that if the automation rely on us to happen, then you are a centralization point of failure, let's put it like that, right? So the way that we see this is through incentivization. So every part that we are thinking about, okay, we need an automation here, how can we make sure that there is an incentive for anyone, whoever wants to be calling that contract, can call it and get a reward for it, right? So one of the parts that we use is over harvesting rewards. So in our, in some of the strategies that we run in DeFi, we collect rewards and we harvest and coming back with the same token. So all of this process is open and anyone can call it, right? Mm-hmm. So then it goes to the part that you touch with the gas fees, then is it profitable for me to call this? And then the approach that we take it, right? But again, as all the automation part, things can go rogue. Someone might not call that contract, even if it's profitable. So you always need to have something to make sure that the user experience will be good enough.
Do you know how often it's the case that a user calls it versus Chainlink automation?
Well, we have a couple of bots, to be honest, that call them, right?
Oh, okay.
We don't know who they are, but maybe it's one of the devs.
Whatever works.
But it's always there.
Yeah, great. And maybe we just touched on this, but why not run this stuff on your own? I think we probably each touched on it individually, but I'd like to hear the answer straight up. Why not run this on your own? What benefits have you seen specifically from Chainlink automation that you value?
Well, I guess I can start. Well, reliability is number one, basically, right? And yes, like Matt said, I want to sleep at night, and that allows me to do so. And we went through this iteration with push button, and it's just too much time. So, and with Chainlink, it's out there, it's running. We don't have to worry about it. It also helps us with the gas. So there is some smart things built into keepers that kind of lessen the risk of overpaying for our transactions. We do have to implement our own solutions on chains where Chainlink keepers are not available, like ZK VM comes to mind. But I consider that as a temporary stopgap measure until you guys catch up and we can switch. Because really, with reliability that Chainlink provides, we would rather use you than do it by ourselves.
Maybe I can go Max, right? I see this as not much different than any kind of software development that you have, or if you are in Web 2 or not. Automation running all of this, make sure that it's like in a decentralized way. It's not part of our core business. Our core business is building DeFi products that generate yields. And it's the same case when you go in Web 2, right? Like whatever is not part of your core business, you outsource that and you get a service that does that for you very well. And I feel like this is the case like here.
I think some of the benefits of it as well is when you are building, you typically are used to having those fundamental building blocks there, but starting off where we were, it was just the open vastness of, okay, well, this is our predicted time to do it. We sort of said it might take about 6 months to build. And then, as you know, developer time, that'll all of a sudden become a lot more. It's not just the automation side, but I think also the relationships that we have with Chainlink now and being able to bounce ideas off of it. And it's not just a sole endeavor, it's actually a bit more than that, and people working together essentially, and we can ask the questions, and you might give answers to problems that other projects have faced as well to help.
Yeah, and I think like from our perspective, like there is a lot of time if you wanted to try and build this yourself. It is like massive amount of like dev time you would sink into it, and you're probably like kidding yourself if you're going to build something as reliable as Chainlink. Yeah. Like pretty much if Chainlink breaks, like all of DeFi breaks in reality. So if you think you can build something as reliable as that, you're probably in for a bit of a kick in the bum and a wake-up call.
Yeah, so a lot of you, or all of you, have spent a lot of time building these contracts and automations. What recommendations do you have for those that are looking to build automations for themselves to mitigate risks?
Like one really good practice like we had was before opening anything to the public, run it for at least like 2 weeks or a week, like with the automation. Like then you can just ideally like see like edge cases, etc. And I think making sure like the smart contracts are really robust, because you could be automating something that has like something broken in the smart contracts, and that like as you're saying like could potentially lead to users losing money if it's like a DeFi thing. So I think really just like taking a cautious approach and understanding when things are automated and that's moving money around, there is like the potential for things to go wrong.
Test, test again maybe, and then once you've tested it after that again, push it out to some people and get them to test it. So we have a joke inside Gravity Finance, and all of our community keeps saying, when's the product coming, when's it all coming, and it's because we take the time and we test it to make sure it's right. We like to run it off to groups of those people that are a bit more risk-taking and want to try it early, and we can test with those and get the feedback and make sure that we're not having anything go wrong and monitor everything, because something will always pop up that you're never expecting. And if you can mitigate those risks on the front end rather than pushing it out to the retail product and seeing something catastrophic, you can stop all that sort of on the development side.
I'm starting to see a theme.
Yeah. Okay. For us, we take also like a very like strong approach on developing like any smart contract, that it goes really to like why are we even building this in the first place, like, and then it goes to even before touching any development, kind of like design decisions. Is this actually solving the problem that we initially thought? And then I go after this is done, testing, and really preparing. So I think one of the very important parts is like, how do you prepare yourself for an audit? Because like the person who is going to audit you has like very limited time as well. So if you can upfront with like, why did you took those decisions and some scope, like saying, what does this intend to do? It also helps a lot the work of the auditors, like to do that and work with good auditors. This is one that I learned.
That's good advice.
Yeah.
So, you already kind of answered the question. Just one thing I want to add is do not rely on off-chain data with your automated contracts. Do everything 100% on-chain. I know Perform Upkeep can take the parameter in and you can pass some data to it. Don't do it. Just make sure everything is calculated and checked on-chain. And because it's public, anybody can call it. They can manipulate off-chain data in some ways that you cannot even imagine. Just make sure it's all contained.
And I think one other thing, what Raphael was saying about like also public, there's like the ability for public people to like call these functions, like having fallbacks, like so you could have like Chainlink automation plus some like fallback, would that be like public users could potentially like call it as well, like run their own bots, because then like you never know, like maybe Chainlink could potentially fail, although it's like proven to be like extremely reliable, like fallbacks are always like good. Just some redundancy would be like another thing.
Sure. Yeah.
Not having one single point of
Yeah,
failure.
yeah.
Of course. Yeah, of course. Only a few minutes left here. I'll ask a more general question for the group. Where do you see the future of DeFi in the next few years? And if you want to include where you see automation in the state of DeFi in a few years, that would be nice to hear as well. Who wants to kick it off?
I can start. Well, each is going to dominate the world, right?
That's right.
The answer. But no, I think I would probably. Well, I'm very bullish on DeFi in general. I think with all of the disasters happening with centralized exchanges, we'll have more money coming into DeFi. We'll have real-world assets tokenized, so there will be much more to, work with in our space. But specifically with liquidity management, I think we are really going there. So I know, people have been putting liquidity on different AMMs and managing them manually. Some companies provided services to manage liquidity manually. I think it's going to come to the end. So the services that will be provided will be automated. So liquidity management will become more and more automated, and it's just going to happen. And then AMMs, more and more of them just moving into concentrated liquidity, especially now with Uniswap, with 3 forks appearing everywhere. And every single one of them, they need automated liquidity management. And you see companies like us and others just popping up, providing that kind of service and closing that niche. It's just going to continue until it's all automated in this space.
I think the future of DeFi is also dependent on the future of crypto, and I think crypto is inevitable. Everyone will start using it one day, but the special place in DeFi is that people that are in DeFi at the moment have already had that awareness of that they want to do something with their money and do something better with it. And so I think the future of DeFi will definitely have things like tokenized real-world assets coming in, because these are already people that understand what to do with their money and they want to optimize it, and optimization usually comes through automation or other processes like that.
Yeah, I think just like the biggest thing is just going to be like improving the user experience. Like right now it's still pretty like terrible for just like the average person who's not like a crypto nerd to like get into DeFi and use it. And like ideally it would just be like abstracted away. So I think things like intents, account abstraction, potentially going to be like quite big in just like helping get it adopted. And then I see like the future is ideally it's kind of just like you don't really like even know you're using DeFi. It's just like a seamless kind of interaction, and it's just like replaces a lot of the things we do now, and ideally like in a much more efficient and transparent way.
It's a big question, right? I think it could take like an hour answering that, but I will try like to really focus on maybe automation part, because I feel like right now there is, I don't know, every time that I think about DeFi products, I always like try to segregate them between a primitive and an aggregator, and like really touching the point of like user experience. I feel like aggregators will like really follow like, I don't know, a lot of DeFi automation to make sure that you offer this amazing user experience, like you have in Tradifies that, hey, I deposit my money here and it just generates more yield. I don't need to like compound and do any other these things like that, right? So I feel like that's going to be like the path.
Yeah. Excellent. Well, we're at time. Thank you all so much. Thanks for joining us today.